Okay, welcome everyone to HealthySimAdmin.com. My name is Lance Bailey. Today we are providing a free webinar for medical simulation consulting as well as Q&A sessions. So please feel free to, for anyone watching now, to enter in your name and title as well as the name of the institution and where that institution is located in the chat room, so we get an idea of where some of the folks are coming from around the world here today. I just want to do a quick test. Can someone in the chat room please make sure to let me know if they can hear me okay? And that we're getting through to everyone just fine. Great, Jackie says that she can hear us. So, fantastic. If anyone has any questions, feel free to go ahead and ask them now. I'm going to talk just a little bit about myself and what my experience is so that you have a brief opportunity to know a little bit more about me in case you have not had a chance to become familiar with me just yet. So my name again is Lance Bailey, and I've been working in simulation for about 5 years now. I started as a healthcare simulation technology specialist, initially as a volunteer for the LA-based community college nursing programs, and then became a hired simulation technician, where I worked in a single patient lab. It was this very small space where we engaged with a high-fidelity mannequin and provided advanced immersive simulation scenarios for the clinical program of LA Harbor College and as well LA Valley College out there in Los Angeles. In about 2009, I was hired by the Clinical Simulation Center of Las Vegas, which was a new program put together by the University of Nevada, Las Vegas School of Nursing, the Nevada State College School of Nursing program, as well as the University of Nevada School of Medicine program, which combined together to build a new 31,000 square foot facility located at an off-campus site in Las Vegas. And so at that time, I was brought on board to become the director of that program and to help bring those schools together into this new space, as well as create an umbrella administration over that space, help to hire and train new staff, as well as get over 80 faculty clinical educators utilizing the space integrated into the various clinical skills labs with low-fidelity task trainers, including a ward, the surgical simulation suite, the standardized patient hall, as well as our 5 medical simulation lab rooms. So, of course, that was a very monumental task. It took a great deal of time to figure out how to do that, and it was an evolving process, and that's something that I'm definitely aware of with regards to all the simulation programs that I've had an opportunity to tour around the country and around the world, as well as with all of the support that I've been able to provide and questions that I've answered through HealthySimulation.com, which now provides over 3,000 unique visitors a month as simulation champions that are coming to learn more about medical simulation with news, tutorials, product reviews, and more. Is that no one person really has all the answers to this emerging profession in terms of methodology and technology. And so that's what we're trying to do with Healthy Sim Admin, is bring together a panel of experts that represent a very dynamic range of medical simulation programs and provide a way for the community to engage with them so that the community itself can help to share solutions as well as gain answers. And I feel that the best way to learn is by being able to gather the experiences that have worked well for other simulation programs and share the experiences and knowledge that has worked for your own simulation program. And that way you get to test and ensure that the quality of your progress is maintained and guaranteed over a longer time, because you have other folks providing advice and tweaking or suggesting alternative or additional concepts or roadmaps or resources that might help you along the way. And so by supporting the community, we really hope to be able to provide a new conversation for the how-to of medical simulation with regards to administrative processes. As 2009, the first year, 2009 to 2010, at the Clinical Simulation Center was one of the most difficult years of my life. We had 5 new staff that had never been trained in their positions before. We had a new manager, which was myself. We had 3 schools coming together that had never previously worked together before. We had desktops that weren't working yet. We had AC systems that were on the fritz, and so it was a very difficult time to have our staff engage with the faculty, perform their positions while at the same time learning what their positions were. And so it took a great deal of time and energy and effort. And while there were additional resources in terms of a yearly meeting that we could go to, it just didn't provide enough ongoing resources to be able to support the type of learning that was necessary to really be successful right off the bat. And so a lot of the success that came from the CSC was earned through stressful trial and error. And that's something that I hope to be able to help prevent for your program by not only these webinars, but also through projects like Healthy Sim Admin, HealthySimulation.com, and of course the Gathering of Healthcare Simulation Technology Specialists, which this year brought together, just this past August, over 155 sim techs from around the world to engage in 3 days of specialized training. And the community was just absolutely thrilled with the meeting and opportunity that we provided there. And so Healthy Sim Admin is a way for us to try to support those administrators in a similar fashion. Obviously, we're not concerned so much with the hands-on training, but really the process of how to develop and maintain, manage, and continue to expand a medical simulation program from the administrator perspective. So with that all being said, if you have any questions, please type them into the chat room on the right-hand side there, and I'd be happy to answer them. So I see that Jackie has a question. Can you talk about how to develop long-term IT structure for SimLab? Thank you for your question, Jackie. Absolutely. When we started the CSCLV, again, the Clinical Simulation Center of Las Vegas in 2009, originally there was no position design that would support the IT needs of the center. And so before the position was actually released to the public for a job description to try to hire for that position, I had an opportunity to alter that job description so that it would include more IT-based information. And so what ended up happening was we created a position that was 60% simulation technology specialist-based, engaging in simulation scenarios and providing resources towards the staff in terms of the operations of the day-to-day processes of simulation. And the other 40% was dedicated to IT-specific needs. So everything from dealing with computers that were on the fritz and not working properly, software updates, server crashes, hardware maintenance and repair, software debugging, whatever the technical issue is, audio-video conferencing management. We put together a proposal for a position that was geared into allowing for more IT-based support at the center in an ongoing and permanent fashion. And that was immensely important to our ongoing long-term success of the program. And so I always recommend that by gaining someone with more computer experience in terms of the handling of the systems, especially the higher up you can go with regards to the system level operation of your simulation program, the better off you will be. Several nursing programs from around the country have emailed me asking for an opinion on the job description posting that they're about to post with regards to their simulation technician position. And I'm still surprised to see that some folks are asking for a master's prepared nurse to be their simulation champion, their primary point of contact with regards to operating simulation. I always make the recommendation that, for example, for a nursing program, well, you already have 12 faculty that are going to be there, 12 educators that are going to be there who know the information about how to engage with that content, that specific side with regards to the process of simulation, that nursing knowledge and know-how. What you're missing from that is the expanded bubble of IT, audio, video, and computer system knowledge that will expand the capabilities of your program by a wider base. And so I would actually put the need for medical knowledge after the need for computer IT, AV related system knowledge for the success of your simulation-based program. Educational backgrounds and experiences are also fabulous. We were lucky enough to find an individual who had taught some courses before, so he's very well versed in education as well with audio-video production. And that's one I always like to recommend, not only because I went to school for audio, video, and film production, but also because it provides a slightly different perspective on the audio-video systems in terms of IT use and computer use. Let me explain that just a little bit further. folks specifically from an IT-related background sometimes have spent a lot of their career directly engaging with networks and computers, and sometimes in closed rooms without much interaction with other folks, other team members from their institutions or departments. Not all the time, but some of the time. Whereas with audio, video, and digital media production, there's a definite need to to engage with another individual in terms of the storytelling of a film and production. So, you know, you have someone from lighting, someone from the camera department, someone from the audio department, and all of those groups need to come together in order to capture the essence of what is going on during the recording of the session. So that requires a lot of communication and know-how about how to set up a scene. And medical simulation is much like setting up individual little scenes where participants go into, there's props, there's a script, you know, there's the cameras and the lighting, there's the audio. All those things are being set up so that individual can go into, and we can basically call action on the scene. And the only one who doesn't have all of the pieces of the pie in terms of what's going on in that scenario is the particular learner. But the rest of it is very much like an audio-video production, especially a documentary video production in terms of, you know, the essence of what is going to be captured is particularly unknown up front. And so there's this opportunity to kind of learn through the recording of this session and reviewing it later on. And so I think again, folks from an IT-specific background are fabulous because they provide the knowledge and know-how to expand the computer-based needs of an audio-video recording lab. And so there's just different options there. But I always recommend that the support and the need of having an IT-specific individual is really important because, you know, some IT specialists have called me before asking, you know, Lance, when is it that the last 20% of my IT-related and computer-related issues for this simulation program that I'm supporting as an IT manager from a different department go away? You know, they call and say, well, 80% have been fixed over the last 6 months, but I just can't seem to get a handle on the last 20% of these problems. And the reality is that with a medical simulation lab, those problems don't go away. They are going to be constant, they're going to be ongoing, and they're going to be there throughout your medical simulation-based program because technology can be finicky. It's sometimes difficult to get all the pieces of the components up and running all of the time perfectly well, and so anyone who uses computers know that they're not always directly responsive to the way that they should be, and that these problems will be ongoing and happening. And not just with the computers, but also the audio-video systems, the recording equipment, the audio equipment, the servers, the mannequins themselves, the programming of those mannequins. You know, I always like to point out that, you know, from an administrative perspective, if you're hiring somebody to come in who's a clinical educator and they have, you know, advanced master's degrees or PhD degrees with regards to their process, and they're tasked with helping to operate a medical simulation-based program, well, their salary range is going to be quite up there. And that compared to someone at a standard rate, the average is still high, but much lower, maybe even half as much for someone with the IT-specific skill set who has, you know, maybe not a master's, but a BS or a BA with regards to computer system technology or audio, video, those types of things. And so what that means is that if you don't hire someone specific for the IT-related components of your simulation program, and you're relying on your master's prepared nurse or physician or, you know, PhD prepared, then MD prepared, excuse me, you're paying someone a lot more to be doing work that they are not specifically trained in. And so you're getting less efficiency, it's costing your program more money, and it's not engaging your system in a long-term fashion for success. And so, you know, one of the things we do with the gathering of healthcare simulation technology specialists is try to help promote this new profession of sim tech out there in the community, because it's not only worth it in terms of expanding your program with regards to the additional staff that have the knowledge and know-how, and it's also cost effective, and it provides for the dedicated and better learning opportunities for your students or your professional staff, because that way the clinical educator or faculty gets to focus in on the aspect that is really what this is all about, which is that clinical education. So by having staff support that surround that individual in terms of the computers and all the systems, it frees them up to just be able to focus specifically on that medical education, which is really what the goal of a medical simulation-based program is to begin with. So when talking a little bit more, we'll just continue on here with regards to IT until any further questions come up in the chat room there. Feel free to ask your questions. I suggest that the structure of hiring somebody as an IT SimTech technology-based manager, a healthcare simulation technology specialist. And that individual will be responsible for the high-level thinking as well as the advanced debugging and systems analysis with regards to any issues that come up or procedures, policy procedure development with regards to a program, and how maintenance schedules are kept, and how technology is cleaned, and how scenarios are programmed, the advanced high-level management and skills necessary to make a program successful. And then underneath that individual, hiring perhaps student workers or providing technical volunteers if you're able to find folks from your community. And there are lots of different ways, which I've covered in other webinars before, in terms of where to look for those volunteer and how to hire those student workers. So go back and take a look at those there. But or even a technical support staff person, full-time position or part-time position, maybe that works off hours and is not maybe so much a 8 to 5 type related position, but could come in on the nights and weekends to expand the program's capability, add a little bit of technical knowledge, be able to debug a system if there's an error in the immediacy of what's going on, but perhaps a little bit more hands-off with regards to the development of the program in terms of the long-term success needs and oversight management of the program in terms of technology for your simulation program. Because it's not just about the medical simulation labs, it's also about the standardized patient computer systems. It's also about those recording systems. It's also about the surgical simulators and the desktop computers and laptop computers that your simulation program will be operating. And perhaps your program has an IT department as a part of your hospital or your school. Well, it's great to be able to rely on those folks for the next level of support. But that initial review, that initial kind of understanding of what the problems could be, and the initial debugging is much more efficient for your program to have that individual specifically there, ready to go with regards to those problems. We don't have to wait for someone to come over from another building, fill out a ticket, hope that gets solved within the next 24 hours, could be a week. They're fantastic. I've noticed for that next level tiered support, we're having an IP address issue, and I can call and say computer so-and-so I can see is not connecting to the network, its IP is this, with my technical background, and then we can move on from there. And so that's a really fantastic way to position yourself. And I tell folks again and again, if you only have the salary and the ability to hire 1 or maybe 2 people for your simulation program, spend that money on the operational side of the program so that the program can continue to keep itself running without a constant need for outside support or we're basically shut down because those clinical educators, when they have the need to learn all this additional information on how to make a simulation program work, and then 2 years later maybe they transfer to another position, another job somewhere else, all of that knowledge is lost with that individual, and there's no opportunity for an ongoing process and procedure development through the technical knowledge to continue on. And so it's really important in my eyes to really spend that need and that money in the grounded level of your program, which, at the end of the day, while we are talking about a new methodology here, it is technology-based. And so the technology itself is something that we will need to focus in on a lot. Now, why I think that this is really important with regards to your program and your process is technology refresh cycles. And that's a term that you might not have heard before, so I'll go into a little bit of detail about that. But you definitely already know what that is. The reason that you know what that is that I'm sure if whatever computer system that you're watching this live streaming event from, it's not a computer from 1996 laptop using a Pentium. I don't even remember what it was back then. Pentium 500, somewhere around that speed. That's operating system of Windows 95 connecting through a dial-up modem. And that's the basic gist of what a technology refresh cycle is that technology is expanding so rapidly that the ability for computer systems to double in processing power about every 2 years has held true since the beginning of kind of hardware-based systems back in the 80s. And so you're seeing not a linear growth of technology with regards to CPU development, but an exponential growth. And so technology refresh cycles is the ability to understand that you're going to need to refresh your technology on an ongoing basis. And so it's necessary to create budgets and plans that will allow for that long-term program development. And so to be able to consider that in a decade from today, if you today had purchased brand new mannequins, computer systems, audio-video systems, and had them installed 10 years from today, most of those tools would be obsolete. They would no longer be the best of the best with regards to the learning opportunities provided to your learners, whether that be clinical staff at a hospital or medical center, or EMS personnel, or whether that be students at an educational center, or the military, in case we're talking about folks from there. And so, you know, I've witnessed this firsthand. When we first started the center in 2009, before we actually opened in August, in May I had an opportunity to travel to some other simulation programs, and it was again 2009, and some of these centers were the creme de la creme, if you will. They were the best of the best back in 1999 and in 2000, so just about 10 years ago. And I noticed that these centers were still utilizing VHS tapes to record their simulation scenarios and or standardized patient engagements. And so it really became clear to me very quickly that, hey, we've got to really think at the Clinical Simulation Center immediately, right off the bat, about what we're going to do to be able to handle this long-term need. Now, isn't that the first thing that you need to focus on when you get into a simulation program and you're launching it for the first time? Absolutely not. But it's definitely something that needs to be on the back burner from the very beginning. It's something that you need to keep in the back of your mind and start to work on when you can, as you can, because it's definitely going to affect your program in the long run. Years 5 to 7 after you open up a new center and you have all the new equipment, that's really the crux of when stuff is going to start to fail on you. And really when we're going to be talking about, hey, there's going to be a need to kind of start to really consider replacing some of those components. And so, again, getting back to a technology refresh cycle, I think it's really important to consider that the need is to refresh individual components within a program so that you're not spending a huge amount of money at year 5 or year 7, say, where you just come in and wipe the slate clean and start over again. But instead, find a way to budget your system so that the technology can, in individual components of the building, once it starts to fail or get ready to move on to a next generation, say, for example, standard def televisions as opposed to high definition televisions or recording platforms, cameras, and video systems of that nature, that you're ready to start to take some of those components and recycle them as you can with your budget. So that as systems start to fail, you have some redundancies in place, but perhaps those redundancies are of the current generation of technology that you're able to purchase with regards to your budget. And you know, this is important to really feed up the chain of command in terms of the highest levels of administration for any simulation-based program. I'm not talking just about like you as an administrator for a program, but really, or manager if you're an IT manager for a program, but really those folks, you know, those CEOs of hospitals, those chief learning officers of hospitals, those CNOs, or the, you know, the deans of schools. Let them know, hey, you know, at some point, you got to really consider that this technology is going to become obsolete, and so we definitely need to come up with a long-term plan to ensure that we can maintain our success as we move forward here. Because if our mission is to provide the highest level of quality to our learners or to our staff, then we absolutely need to consider how we're going to afford to pay for the ongoing need to increase and replace technology as it ages. And so I'd see it in kind of a couple of different groups. You've got segments of year 3 to year 5. You're going to see some, excuse me, some systems starting to fail. Years 5 to 7, you're really going to see a lot more systems start to fail. You know, hard drives after so many uses will not be able to spin the disks, and so data corruption is possible. You know, somewhere in that range. You know, I've seen hard drives fail after year 2 and just be, you know, dead on arrival to show up in use. So, you know, the need to consider what components can you see and assess that needs to be replaced on what phases should really be, at the end of the day, the responsibility of this IT manager for your simulation program. They have a really strong understanding of what the computer technologies are, AV systems are, what the long-term needs are, and you know, they're the ones going to medical simulation conferences and other types of conferences, much like SimGhosts, the gathering of healthcare simulation technology specialists, and looking at some of this latest in terms of technology. And I feel that the more that we understand that the power of these individuals to really assess and understand what the technology needs are, because they are the ones at the end of the day who are the real end users of this equipment, the more that we'll be able to develop a program that does maintain that long-term success, because they have the opportunity to know the technology and know what's coming and know what's moving forward so that your program can keep moving forward. So years 5 to 7, you know, you're going to see a lot more system failures. You're definitely going to start to see technology outdating your own in terms of use and equipment. With some components and systems, as long as preventative maintenance has been applied throughout the process, you might be able to extend up to year 7 with some of that componentry. But by year 7 to 10, you're really going to need to see the need to export some of that equipment and import new technology into your program. I don't believe there's many of us who would be using a Windows 2000 server system at this point, or Windows 98, or you know, one of those types of things. So we're definitely consider that within a decade there's going to need to be, you know, definitely, if not a failure in systems, but definitely an inefficiency in those systems in terms of boot up times, capabilities, and what's possible there. Just going back a little bit more to the IT manager department, and kind of my suggestion that audio video folks are also great places to look for a SimTech. You know, with regards to that technology and that knowledge of video production, if someone is capable of putting together productions at your lab, so whether that be promotional videos for your space and what you're doing, or whether that be training sessions, for example, orientations for new users of medical simulation lab spaces. So for example, shooting a short video, which would be about 5 minutes in length, that would do an orientation to this space in the room in terms of all the different sections of the room. And I've created some detailed tutorials on how to create your own orientations on healthysimulation.com, which you can find. I'll make sure to try to include the links here below, or just by searching for video tutorial on the website there. But what this will enable you to do is before your learners even enter the space to become oriented, they've already had a visual orientation to where the O2 masks are, what's at the bedside table, where the patient chart can be found, and then a detailed analysis of, an explanation of what's going on with the head to toe of the mannequin. What that does is, before they get into the space, and then when they get into the space, now they've already visually heard and seen it, and now they're going to go in and they're going to experience it. And so the learning is going to increase, because the time spent trying to figure out, where are those gloves again? Where do I get the O2 masks? Oh, well, it's been covered not only once but twice in terms of the orientation that has been provided to me. And that enables learners and educators to spend more time on learning as opposed to more time on trying to find out what is going on and what the mannequin is capable of, and where do I find those pulses and how do I do that. So, those types of audio-video productions, as well as going again back to the promotion of your center, this definitely allows for the explanation of what goes on in these spaces to the outside world, or to your internal community. Demonstrating and recording a professional simulation experience with one of your simulation champions, and highlighting perhaps some interviews of the learners and the educators that were there that day and what they gained out of the experience, can help to drive your program's utilization if you're having difficulty expanding that. And especially for a program with a large number of potential clinical users or department heads or chairs or faculty that might not all be on campus at the same time or in the simulation lab at the same time, producing a video enables you to record a session and produce a session that can be viewed an endless number of times to an endless number of people. So whoever has that account, publicize that information, that video documentation on your website through a free upload to, say, youtube.com. It also, so that will grow your program internally without you have to actually bring folks in and schedule time where they can all come in. Not to say that that's not a great way of hosting an open house, but here's this marketing platform where you send in video information that's very quick and easy, maybe only a 5-minute video that can quickly catch the interest of internal or external users. What is possible to happen in these spaces, success stories and testimonials through direct interviews, B footage showing the mannequin and what's possible in these types of spaces. Well, then add to that, hey, we're going to have an open house. Come by. We're going to do a simulation experience. You can watch one. You can participate one. You can really engage with the process. You can see what the potential is. Because as I suggested in one of my previous webinars, it's important to stay in front of the wave of your own simulation program. It's difficult to get up there and in front of all of the information and needs of a program. For example, the efficiency of policies and procedures. Developing, hiring staff, developing staff positions, and then hiring those staff, and continuing to be in front of that wave. The equipment purchasing equipment and getting trained on equipment and training others on the equipment and setting up your scheduling and all of the necessary components to having a successful simulation program. Getting in front of that wave and being able to do that quickly and easily is something that definitely is helped by audio-video productions in terms of maximizing that time of AV engagements with regards to any of those steps that are necessary to train other people about. We used video systems to explain how to operate very simply with just about a 2 to 3 minute video, how to operate the lectern, audio-video lectern for all of the clinical educators. We also provided a small portfolio book to the side of the lectern so that folks could see, and they'd have that information. So before they picked up the call and said, hey, I can't get this to work, well, did you watch the audio video on how to turn on the system? No, I didn't. Okay, well, you have to watch that video first before we can send somebody else down there because, our highest level of administration have said, hey, we don't have the resources to just be there to help you push buttons, especially when we've created and spend a lot of money on expensive systems that are quite simple to use once you kind of get a basic understanding of how to push the on button from the monitoring station, how to lower the screens, and how to change the lighting systems or audio systems if you need to do so. So videos can be very helpful, and I think that someone with an IT or computer-based background, in this day and age, nobody who went to film school such as myself in the last 15 years was really spending a lot of the time dealing only with film. And everything is digitized now, so we're talking about digital mediums that had to engage with taking the footage off of a digital recorder, putting it onto a computer, editing with a computer-based software. So the understanding of what it takes to get a camera system and utilize that equipment is kind of inherent in that knowledge and that education. So that's really covered a lot very briefly here with this half hour about what is possible with regards to a long-term development of an IT structure for a simulation lab. And I definitely feel like, again, it's very important to have this individual, and that's why one of the sessions that we have at Healthy Sim Admin by Farouz is going to be specific to that particular topic. We're going to spend 2 hours just talking about IT structures and what's necessary for the operations and ongoing success with regards to simulation programs and IT-related issues. And remember, we're not just talking about large-based simulation programs. We're also talking, small 1 lab or 2 lab, community colleges and what they're trying to do with regards to IT and needing that support and how they gain that access and how they've developed their program. So a complete range in terms of the dynamic panel that we're trying to provide here so that we can help folks really from all different programs and learn from each other, because perhaps there's something that the IT operator or manager from a 31,000 square foot facility can share with the community college one lab program that would be very helpful to know and understand, and vice versa. Maybe there's some tactics that a one-room simulation lab with regards to IT process could really change and benefit for that 31,000 square foot 5 simulation lab program. And so being able to engage in different types and sizes of programs, I think, is very important. That's one of the things we are going to do with Healthy Sim Admin October 18th and 19th at UNLV. So with that being said, I know we have some viewers here. Are there any other questions with regards to medical simulation processes? I'm going to take a quick drink of water here. Okay, so Steph RRT has asked, I'm still very new to medical simulation and always looking for good moulage resources. Any tips? Absolutely, Steph. I would say that one of the best places to look is moulageconcepts.com, and that's by Bobby Marika, and she has a wealth of knowledge with regards to moulage. She's got an amazing book called Medical Moulage, How to Make Simulations Come Alive, which I believe I've done a review on healthysimulation.com, so I'll provide that link to you there. It's about a 330-page book, I believe. It's over 300 pages for sure, of just recipe after recipe after recipe in a very clear format that can really kind of demonstrate what is necessary to build a very huge number of moulage related makeup tips. So that would be one particular resource that I would suggest. We did provide at the Gathering of Healthcare Simulation Technology Specialists this past August a discounted registration to a full 8-hour day of trauma moulage, which was a workshop, pre-conference workshop hosted at the Clinical Simulation Center of Las Vegas. So I would definitely consider exploring simghosts.org to see when we announce the schedule for the 2013 event, what type of moulage course we hope to be able to offer during that time as well. So again, it's moulageconcepts.com. You can also just click on the moulage tab of healthysimulation.com, and any particular information or resources that I've ever found useful with regards to the use of moulage will be sorted out for you there. So definitely go to the section tab under moulage, and you'll be able to bring up all the articles that I've ever written or shared about moulage. And I think moulage is really important because anything from an additional smell to the sight that is possible with regards to understanding where that patient is with regards to their healing process or their needs is really helpful to the learner. And so while it might take a little bit of additional time, there are definitely, through Bobby's courses and books and that type of things, ways of creating moulage that can be saved and used over and over and over again. So you definitely find the opportunity of, once you kind of have a basic grasp and understanding of how to use moulage, you can start to use it faster and more efficiently, like anything else. But it definitely can, once you get on the other side of the fence, know those basic techniques, you can quickly apply moulage to any simulation scenario. And just small things, a little bit of blue powder on fingertips or lips, to be able to help demonstrate cyanosis beyond, whatever the mannequin is capable of doing. Or, individual scars, or it can get the most elaborate burn scenarios I've ever seen from folks utilizing thousands of different types of techniques to create a really realistic scenario, to just applying a single wound with a bandage, for Jackson Pratt, or whatever the particular thing is. It definitely helps the learner see visual cues, and also demonstrates to them when they go into the space and don't do a complete assessment head to toe and maybe have missed some of that moulage, that happens quite often, you can really say, did you find the wound that was on their left side of their abdomen? And if they say no, because I didn't check, well, see, what other additional knowledge did you miss because you didn't go through a very thorough kind of investigation of the mannequin, or that patient, if it's a standardized patient. So definitely think that moulage is a fantastic resource, and that those tips that I just suggested would be helpful there. Okay, any other questions with regards to medical simulation? Feel free to use the chat room there and just enter in any question that you have with regards to medical simulation. I'm going to talk a little bit more with regards to the IT position about ways of saving the knowledge gained from the staff that is responsible for your IT-related issues. Say that you still don't have a budget to be able to provide someone with that experience on an ongoing basis. Even starting with a part-time position or kind of renting an individual from your IT department for a part-time is going to be immensely helpful for your program. And to be able to save some of that knowledge that's gained by that individual as they work through the process would be to have them develop a standard operating procedures manual that basically explains a step-by-step how-to of how to do certain actions, like, for example, turn on the mannequin in the appropriate way, turn on the audio-video system, how to save, and creating documentation of the different terminals that I would always recommend you laminate so that it doesn't get spilled on, and the permanency of it remains solid for a much longer time when you laminate things. And creating just simple how-to documentation that can be placed around different spots of the center that are technology-based. Creating some of these manuals so that the training that is necessary for your users can be self-educated, kind of going back to those audio-video sessions that might be helpful to your program. It's always best because you never know how long you're going to be able to engage and utilize that person, and how long before perhaps they may leave. If you're on soft money for that position, when that individual that money might run out. And so by building in part of their weekly process is to capture some of that content and use in such a way that that information will remain even after they leave, will be helpful for the long-term success of your program. Because I've heard it from hundreds of programs across the world. How do we, it's just so difficult because there's so few people who understand medical simulation, and when we lose our simulation champion or our staff, it's like we have to start over. Well, so it's very important to start recording some of this information in different formats and different ways so that the knowledge gained can be shared to the next individual very quickly, very easily. At least it's a starting point. Of course, no one's going to be able to share all that content information unless they are there to train the next individual in that position, which is always, always helpful. But, what else can you do to provide that level of content? So audio-video productions that share that information. Manual development for different procedures and processes. For example, Darren Bowers from Kaiser Permanente put together like about a 35-page operations manual specific to how to engage with the SimMan 3G for their various simulation labs across the 13 different, I believe it's 13 different centers across the state of California. And so as the only simulation technology specialist for all of those centers, there was no way that he could be there at all of those training sessions all the time. So he had to really step back and say, okay, what kind of information can I provide to the group as a whole? That information, that document is available for free if you become a subscriber of simghosts.org, so simghosts.org, at least for the time being. I know we're moving to a paid structure in the near future, but if you're interested in that type of information, an example of what that looks like, please feel free to go there. There's other online resources as well, including job descriptions and other types of policies and procedures and documentation. So there's manuals like I just talked about there, and then there's also leaflets and flyers or laminated documents around various technology components that are helpful to your program in the long run. And So I think that that is the start of how you be able to transfer some of that knowledge and keep some of that knowledge with your program as opposed to just the individuals operating your program. Okay, are there any other questions with regards to anything from operating a medical simulation lab to IT-specific needs, or training faculty or educators, or getting buy-in, or a new building and how to design, or how to expand utilization? One other point I will make right away is that the simghost.org has a listserv with over 500 members at this point, and so folks ask technical questions and get daily answers from that community. And so there's just been some amazing dialogue and conversations there, answering questions, everything from how do you deal with ventilation machines to very specific mannequins, to how far can you move a mannequin from your router or hub, and what's the best cable to use, to moulage questions. So I definitely suggest subscribing to simghost.org for more technical support. Okay, Molly's asked a question. Where can I find market research on how much a simulation coordinator at a medical simulation should be paid? Well, that's a very good question, and a tricky one too. I would suggest, there are a couple of resources that might be helpful to you. The first one I would suggest is INACSL. That's the International Nursing Association for Clinical Simulation and Learning, which is inacsl.org. They also have a listserv if you become a member of their organization that has about, at any given time, somewhere between several thousand nursing simulation champions who have hired simulation coordinators or are simulation coordinators themselves. And I know that they would be happy to potentially share some of that information with you after posting that question. We've found that, with our market research with regards to SimGhost and what the salary ranges are for the simulation technicians, that are around $28 to $30 an hour, and is the general salary range, which ends up being, I believe, somewhere around $65,000 a year, give or take, depending, obviously, number of degrees and what part of the country that you're working in. But as a simulation coordinator, Molly, to me, what that means is that, usually that's for a smaller program, or for a program that's looking to get invested in simulation and basically needs someone to know the technology a little bit and also be able to be that coordinator for the program in terms of scheduling, potentially, and also being that educator. So is that really kind of what you're looking at with regards to your needs, kind of someone who can also do the clinical portion of the education? Because at that point, you really are talking about an educator's salary who potentially has medical simulation experience. And I would say that for every year of medical simulation experience that they have, it's probably an additional $5,000 a year of salary that I would offer to them, beyond what the standard average range is for their qualifications as an educator, just because that is a specialty that is difficult to find. And if you don't have that up front with that educator, then you're definitely going to be doing a lot of training hands-on as opposed to starting a program and getting ready to go. So I'd say that it's, if you're talking about someone as a clinical educator who's also going to be helping to coordinate, right, okay, a master's prepared RN in current faculty position being asked to design, build, and implement an interdisciplinary simulation program. So I would start at whatever that particular range is for that type of position to begin with, and then I would add about $5,000, depending on the number per year almost of what their simulation experience is, and maybe up to another $5,000 if they've had experience doing this type of job already at another program where they can demonstrate immediate potential with regards to developing your own program. Because the additional stresses involved is that that person's going to come in and need to basically be a manager that needs to directly be in relationship to almost directly underneath that primary level of administrator for the program, for the department itself. So there can be that direct engagement. So anyone underneath that, there will need to be a management of, say, for example, even if it's just themselves starting off, coordinating folks with regards to the clinical educators in the space itself, understanding how to utilize the technology, move forward there. That's a lot of knowledge that if you can get paid for and developed by someone else, that's worth every penny with regards to your program. Again, I would say that eventually what will happen is, even if that is the only individual responsible for all of those applications in regards to that budget, that the simulation coordinator is going to be the only person in that position, or that only staff for that program, eventually you will find that you will definitely need to hire more staff, especially for the increased use internally as folks get to understand the power of simulation and want to expand its use, and externally as you potentially are able to bring in outside contracts to utilize the space, the time, not only the staff person, but the equipment and the supplies and the space and audio video systems that you've made this investment in, which you definitely can make a return on investment with the correct marketing and program up and running. And even if that person is just working with student workers or volunteers or part-time LOA contracts, letter of appointment contracts, they're still going to need to be kind of having that management experience. So it's not only about being an RN educator, but also kind of engage with the management in terms of program development. So I would put them definitely, I would start to increase their salary around that range. And so Stephen's saying, well, I'm actually an RT with a BA in Applied Health Science, and I run a program for community college, making $30 to give you an idea. And that sounds about right to me for a community college. And of course, if we're talking about various types of institutions, I would say find the baseline for that individual, and then as they have more experience, definitely start to bump up that salary to make it attractive enough for someone to leave the facility that they're at, where they're not being paid, or that they see an opportunity for potentially an increase in salary or responsibility. And so if they have been a simulation user but not a program manager, well, then I would not see the need to pay them more. Yes, there's an opportunity for them to gain additional experience, but I would bring them in at a similar rate to the rates that they're already getting, because they can't bring any of that experience with them. You're going to have to pay, they're going to have to learn that together to move forward. So, and I think 2 years of simulation experience running a program and making it work is definitely worth an extra, $8,000 to $10,000 a year, especially if you want to launch a program and make it successful within a year. Hire somebody who's got that training, because otherwise you're going to spend 1 year to 2 years figuring it all out. That individual's going to spend 1 to 2 years figuring it all out themselves. And while I'm saying aiming a little higher, already making $40 an hour as a school RN sim coordinator, now being asked to develop and run a well-founded sim center. Yeah, so, to give you an idea, I would think that realistically, if you're coming in and you're going to be that director level, and I would kind of see simulation coordinator maybe a little bit in terms of what I've seen out there in terms of job positions, simulation coordinator slightly below a director level. But if you're talking director level, which is just that you're the manager of the space, you are in charge of the budgets, you're in charge of the staff, you're in charge of helping to organize those staff to figure out schedule, use of equipment, train users, make the thing really work from start to finish, then I would definitely be saying your salary range should be around, especially for a large-based program like that, 120, somewhere between $80,000 and $120,000 a year, depending on, again, your clinical background and what you can bring to the table there. But I think that you're really talking about the management of a high-use technology facility with a lot of concerns, and so this salary range should fit somewhere in there, especially for kind of like a medical school or advanced school, something like that. Yes, director level is very scary. It's I kind of backed into the position by being one of the only staff person with any simulation experience when I went to the center, and so taking and adding more and more responsibility to my everyday plate. I just saw the opportunity to help do more, and but 2009, again, like I said earlier, was definitely one of the most difficult years of my life, 2009 to 2010 from May to May, where we basically had to get, I had about 3 semesters worth of courses. We had 500 learners who, after we entered the space within 1 week, we had the staff enter the space because it was a brand new building, or a brand new redesign of an old building. So all new floor just for us. We had about a week before the educators came in and the school began for the 3 programs. And my gosh, was it way too much to handle all at the same time. I mean, it just was a heck of a lot, and there were a lot of unhappy people as we moved forward. But we moved through it. It was a difficult transition. We were, moving from individual coordinators to one, dedicated staff for those different departments, and had to create policies and procedures and operations and know-how for all of them. And that was not something that was easily done without, a lot of stress in terms of trying to figure out how to do this on our own. And again, if you are considering a director level position, I couldn't recommend Healthy Sim Admin more. I mean, it's designed to start to help build a real conversation and support base of community folks that can start to share those concepts and ideas that are going to help it so that you prevent a lot of those headaches that I know individually we're all having. And I see it across the board time after time, people calling from around the world, and they're asking very similar questions. And I know other folks with their experience and backgrounds, because we each came from a unique background to be able to provide medical simulation. So they have, some of us have an MBA. I had an audio-video degree in EMT firefighting. So, in simulation technology specialist background. So, and other folks come from, I've seen every type, someone maybe specifically from a nursing department or a medical school or a hospital, as a chief educator. And so everyone has different background experience that would be successful to share with others, because it definitely leads to successes in one of many of that, or a few of many of the aspects of how do you run these programs. And so by everyone chipping in the best of the best information and knowledge that they have, can really all walk away with just the top information with regards to how to specifically run different types of programs. Okay, with that being said, we're coming up on the 1 o'clock hour here in Pacific Coast Standard Time. So is there any other questions before we wrap up this live stream today? I do want to point out, if you have a simulation technology specialist who maybe doesn't have an IT background or a computer-based background, and is more of kind of a hands-on person to help just do the day-to-day of simulation, where you're maybe doing a scenario changeover and just helping to be the operator once that maybe higher level individual has IT individual has taught them how to engage in simulation and do those necessary procedures, how to debug common problems and that type of thing, and can be called immediately into any scenario to help with a technical problem. You're talking about a much lower salary range, somewhere between $35,000 and $55,000 for being that slightly lower level of sim tech that can come in and just kind of do the technical day-to-day operations without maybe the management and understanding of servers and IT infrastructure and much bigger issues that will be, like I discussed in the first half of this portion in terms of those needs. Okay, so unless there's any other questions, any last questions? Okay, well, I want to thank everyone for participating in today's live stream. Remember that we'll be doing live streams each week leading up to Healthy Sim Admin. So next week, I believe it's Thursday, and the following week it's Tuesday. You can check the schedule on healthysimulation.com as well as healthysimadmin.com. Definitely consider signing up for Healthy Sim Admin before August, as I know, October, as I know that the early bird discount at that point is over, and so If you have any other questions, always feel free to email me at lance@healthysimulation.com, lance@healthysimulation.com, and I will be sure to include those links that we talked about today for you in this post when it becomes available online in the next few weeks for the recap of this video. So anyone, if you missed any of this, or for anyone who missed it, you can watch the whole thing. And I believe those links were the video orientation tutorial and medical moulage book review, which again I think is worth every penny. It's just an amazing collection of moulage recipes in a very detailed format that is very helpful. Okay, well, thank you everyone for participating, and we look forward to seeing you next week and continuing the conversation online. Be sure to join us. Subscribe to healthysimulation.com, as well as our new LinkedIn group. We're on Twitter @HealthySim, as well as a Facebook page. So you can gain access and knowledge to these resources through any of the social media channels that you find most supportive. Thank you, Molly, and thanks, Steph. We appreciate your support, and hope you'll share with your friends, and are here to answer any questions you have with the ongoing development. So we look forward to seeing your success in simulation. Okay, everyone, thank you so much. Have a great week in Sim.